Hi, I'm Carole Robinson, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the first of the next year's county happenings, where we talk with County Mayor Rogers Anderson about what's happening in the county.
Well, I guess you had a good holiday season.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Always good to see the kids smile, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness. And the chaos. I love the chaos.
Plenty of chaos. Well, 2020 is here. 2019's behind us.
Yep. And so let's do a little what happened then and what we expect to happen or hope to happen in this coming year.
Now, so 2019 was a very interesting year as far as I'm concerned. Through the efforts of the county commission over the last couple of 2 or 3 years, we have dealt with schools head on. The building of schools, bricks and mortar, and the operation's a whole different ballgame. But
well, it seems like schools. It's every year we've dealt with schools for the last 20 years.
Well, in 2020, we've got 2 schools under construction. One of them's on Goosey Hill, it's an elementary school, and then you've got a middle school on Hembeck Lane. And both of those should be opening up at the end of this year. It's all about construction and weather.
Yeah.
Hopefully get those things opened up in August, if not first part of 21, January, about a year from now. But each one of those elementary schools, they run around 40 to 45 million, and middle schools run 45 to 50, 55 million, and high schools start at 60 and go on up. So how do you pay for them? And so over the efforts of the last 2 to 3 years, about 2017, 18, a discussion was led that at that time, Dr. Mike Looney said we need approximately $500 million, that's a B, $500 million worth of new school buildings over the course of the next 12 to 15 years. And all that's based.
And hearing that one figure goes,
oh yeah, we all took this deep breath and said, how are we gonna pay for it?
Yeah.
Because, property, the way you structure taxes, the majority of your funding comes from property taxes. Now you get some, don't discount this, from sales tax, you get wheel tax. I mean, there's a gluttony of fees and taxes but you want to keep your property taxes low the best you can. And so we got busy, and Brentwood helped us out a little bit on about $2 million worth of paying for schools in the Brentwood area. And so that allowed the high school to be re-looked at
Granny White.
Yeah, Granny White, thanks. And a beautiful building next at the end of the football field was put in, and there's renovations going on at all the schools, and that's one of our older schools now.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
it's so landlocked because of Granny White Pike, and the middle school right next door that it can't go anywhere but up.
Well, and the city leaders at that time, $2 million does not buy a building. $2 million pays the note on a building. And they have always given money for their schools. Right. And I've always been appreciative of what Brentwood does and for their schools. They give money to all the schools inside the Brentwood area directly to the schools so that they can use it without it coming through county general. And I'm fine with that. That they can buy those things that they need for that individual school. But this time they stepped up and said, we want to help, and they did, and they wrote a check for over $2 million to help fund the new building in between the Brentwood Middle and Brentwood High School that they needed to have, and some other renovations. But what about the rest of the money? Where are we going to get the rest of the money? And so through the efforts of Bond Council, Bassberry and Sam Stevens, Nina Graham, spent a great deal of time. We sat down and we looked at numbers and said, okay, a school building costs X. It's just like your house. What's the mortgage going to be on that? And so we know that if you borrow $1 million, there's a certain percentage that's we call that, in the real world, we call that a mortgage, and over here we call it a bond. What's your indebtedness, all of that. So we sit out and we created this educational impact fee. It was very only county in the state to do it, where it only affects new people that come into your county. They have to pay a fee by virtue of the heating and cooling for new construction only. And it was paid at the time of the permit, city or county. It didn't matter if you built in Brentwood or Franklin, Fairview, Spring Hill, Noseville, or the unincorporated area, you had to pay it. So that's put in motion about almost 2 years since it was implemented. It's in the courts. The home builders brought a lawsuit against it. We've talked about that in past years, but we should know something in March of this year, and unless it goes to Supreme Court and we win, we'll have access to about $30-some-odd million worth of funds to pay for a school. Well, that's still not the cost of one school.
No, yeah.
But that pays your debt on that school for the next 5 years, and allow some of the old debt that's on the books to roll off, and so you have this balancing money coming and going. You hope it all works out. It's supposed to.
It's called juggling.
It's called juggling. And so at the same time, we looked at sales tax, if you remember. Nobody likes to raise it, but we raised it half a penny, and the cities all gave up their portion to help our schools, and so that helped to pay for buildings. So for the next 5 years, unless some unknown something happens, we should be fine for schools. But we've got other issues that are popping up. So in 19, we've dealt with the schools, we built schools. We've got a few little extras, like an animal center that should be opening up here. The dirt should be moving the next 60 days on this structure to deal with that. We had a very antiquated, we just put duct tape on this other place till we get this new and opened up. So in 2020, we'll have a new animal center begin.
In the same location?
No, we're moving it over on a piece of property off of Old Charlotte, and it's
Over near where the new Mac Hatcher's going to? Okay.
That's one of the reasons. It backs up to the Mac Hatcher. It'll probably be a $12 to $15 million structure that we've been putting money back. And then we've got some friends of animal. They're running a fundraising activity. They've raised well over $1 million. And so it's a beautiful thing. And of course, Andrea Johnson is just doing fantastic, leading that charge and running that center. And she lives out in the Page community, her and her husband and children, and she's just wonderful. She's got such a passion for that, and she's got a good business mind. So all of that takes time. So 19 was a year that we dealt mostly with growth items. And just recently, in the last 30 days, our master plan people, Gresham and Smith, have come back. We've been looking for a year. They've been looking for a year. How are we going to deal with juvenile jails and judges? We called it the JJJ task force. You know, how original can you get? So, and so they're coming back. And so they've tweaked it, and we made a few changes in the judges' chambers. We'll have to do more in that on down the road. But
and again, you're kind of landlocked where you are. To what you can't.
They don't want to move from downtown.
No.
Merchants don't want to leave from downtown.
That was an issue when you built the criminal justice center to begin with.
Yes.
So it ain't going to come up again.
No, it's not. So, you know, what's first? Juvenile. Growth brings more people, more problems, and not every boy and girl are sweet little darlings. There are. There's no other way to say it.
Right.
And, boys are boys. We're going to do mischievous things. So do girls.
Yeah,
nowadays.
so
I'm finding that out. And
even the sweet little darlings can be not sweet little darlings once in a while.
I've got 9 grandkids, and there are days that they're not sweet little darlings. Now they're my grandkids, and I love them, but for the most part, they're great grandkids. But you have to do. Judge Sharon Guffey does a wonderful job. Her and her staff, Brenda Hyden, balancing. But we've got.
I don't know how they do it with the number of families that they deal with. in a monthly basis, let alone a yearly basis with that small
Yeah.
staff. They're incredible.
And a lot of this now is, I guess I'm picking on a different department of government, but my good friend, my late good friend, Charles Sargent, and the legislators, they did away with a lot of mental health monies. And a lot of mental health issues are tied to counseling and training, and they did what they needed. They closed down these institutions.
Yeah, and that was a national thing, too.
It was a national thing. And I stood...
And we're reaping the rewards.
Well, that's right. And because we've now backfilled, though, in the world that I live in, where's your backstop? When the ball gets away from the catcher...
Where's it going to go?
Where's it going to go? And you've got to remember that just stopping the funding doesn't stop the problem.
Right.
So now it's shifted itself down to our jails. It's shifted itself down to the juvenile. Drugs and alcohol are a major component of every community. We know that. So 19 was putting all this together. And so in 20, we will begin to see what's going to cost to fix this and how are we going to do it. Well, you can't put a juvenile center. You can't put a jail in the middle of town.
No.
No community wants it. We saw the battle that went on out by the Ag Center on outpatient services.
Yeah.
So imagine saying, well, we're going to roll out and put a jail at some facility.
Let's go put this in Grassland.
I did not say that, Cameron. Wherever you are,
I'm just giving
point
an
the
example.
arrows at her.
Just giving an example.
No,
Just you do that. You're
But they
going to
can
have.
cut and splice.
You might as well just go cue.
So where do we put it? Well, we know we got to leave it out where it is, so we're going to have to build around it. Well, it's a rock quarry. It's the blasting that goes on all around. They've got firing ranges. We've got our material handling location out there. So if we're going to have to build, we got a double.
You got a fire department center
Yeah,
there.
you got a fire department. You've got warehouse that keeps things. And so year 20 will be moving those monopoly buildings and lining them up so that they can all get done. And if we have to move one thing, then where do we take it? We can't stop the service.
Right.
But maybe you could find another place for it. The material handling, which is just separating your plastics and glass and metal and steel, things like that, comes in on the trucks. And then there's a belt, a conveying belt, and there's people there that work, and they separate those products. Well, maybe that could be better used out at landfill, that structure, create a few jobs, a little more modern facility, has no repercussions. I mean, it's just on the concrete floor. So, but it costs money.
Right. It's just another building that has to be built.
We've got a firing range. We've got two firing ranges out there. We got one for the county and one for the city of Franklin, and Brentwood uses ours. Well, Brentwood is building a new police station, and inside that they're going to have an indoor firing range, which will minimize what they need to use from us. We allow the state people. We allow citizens to come out. So what would it hurt to look at us maybe looking at an indoor firing range? What would that cost? Because when it's inclement weather like we have in December and January and February and March,
Training's limited.
Yeah, you're limited. And so maybe that's an approach. So we're looking at all these options, and there's pros and cons in everything we do. And we already know the price tag of a juvenile center is about $55 million, about the cost of a high school. But that's just the cost for the bricks and mortar. That's not the cost of the operation, nor is it the cost of relocating something to get you there. So there's lots of moving parts that are going to occur, just like they
It's
have
like a chess game here.
Yeah, I call them Monopoly houses.
Yes.
You know, I'm sure you've played Monopoly, and you roll the dice, and you get to go 1 through 12, and
if you do, you're going to buy that place.
That's right, you're going to buy that place, and you come around, and of course the big valued properties are Parkway and Baltic Avenue, I believe. What? Boardwalk. Yeah. There's somebody plays. And you want those. Well, that's we've got to figure out how to get all the way around that boardwalk without going to jail. Or without getting in trouble, or having the tax collector come.
yeah.
Remember that guy?
Yes, the tax collector.
I mean, that's what we have to deal with when you're dealing with these structures, and nobody wants to pay for jails. Nobody wants to pay for juvenile. I get it. I don't like
It's a
taxes.
necessary evil.
But it's part of the issues of society that we've gotten in. So you depend on men and women, architects firms, owners, reps to do the best job you can and do it in a systematic way that doesn't eat you alive. And the cost, a new jail is going to be $150 million. Now, there's no way you can get $150 million put into our budget, but maybe you can do 25 and 50 and 75 and 100 as you need that money for that facility. And of course, other people would say, well, you know it's going to cost $150. Why not just borrow that up front? Well, I can't stand the note. I can't stand it on the property tax unless.
And the money you're paying on the interest on that note could be accruing interest on the money you're saving by waiting.
That's right. So those are the things we're dealing with. And oh, by the way, we're still growing community.
Yeah.
And we are moving we purchased on Downs Boulevard. We just wrapped it up on 12/31 of this past year. We'll be moving where you go to vote.
The Election Commission?
Mm-hmm. They're moving out on Downs Boulevard. It used to be, I forgot the name. There's a.
Is it where the fire department?
Yes, that's
rescue
where
squad is?
rescue. We'll still leave them there because they service.
It's a huge building they've been enjoying.
Yes, they have. So we've been renting it. The owners a few years ago, when I approached them, there was tax implications. They couldn't sell it at the time, so they allowed us to rent the building. With our rent, was I think it's like 75% of our rent payments going toward maybe the other way around. 25% of the rent payment was going to the purchase of the building when that day came, and that day came in 2019. So we've got to spend some money to get the Elections Commission out there where people can go and vote, and they have more room, and deal with that issue. Then we'll spend a little money over here and renovate. Miss Anderson needs more room. Schools need more room. Everybody needs more room.
You need a parking garage out here.
Not going to build a parking garage. We need it. But parking garages run you $17,000 per spot.
Wow.
So,
and a little spot like that we've got here.
The spot is the parking spots.
Yeah.
So to create one, and
it's just not going to happen.
it's just not going to happen.
Well, right. and tying up the whole parking lot to create a parking garage would be a nightmare.
So, and in 19 we started also what I call putting lipstick on the hog on this building, and which is not a bad connotation. I mean, old country boy, you understood that. This building needed some efficiencies brought to it. Paint was one of them, just to make the public and the employees feel a little bit about the place, a little pride. But the real savings are coming in the electrical and the energy side, the plumbing side. I know this is not what you talk about on this show, but just changing out the old toilets and getting these energy efficient ones that when you flush it, it's a gallon and a half rather than half in the Harpeth River the old way. It's just flushed and it just kept on. You jiggle the hand. Well, we put in some facilities, and later in the spring of this year in 2020, we'll put in new windows that are energy efficient. I mean, you can. This old building, we had some of the single pane windows that you could almost see the heat going through the glass, and the heat in the summertime coming in. It's just an old building.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's so usable and functional. It's just not pretty. But I guess...
Looks like an old hospital.
It looks like an old hospital. It probably always will. But to go and replicate this building on a new structure would be another $100 million. So you have to spend a couple of million, $5 million. I mean, we throw millions out like they're dollars around here, but that's what it takes. And We had Kevin Benson on the show recently. We have over 100 buildings under his jurisdiction, not counting school buildings. And just to keep the maintenance up on this building, on these buildings, the air conditioning and the HVAC, it's just like your house. Something breaks every day.
Yeah.
And you got to have good men and women that can go out there and get it fixed, and et cetera, et cetera. So I guess the way that I would answer your question in 2020, what are we going to do versus 2019? A lot of it's going to be the continuation of what good sound business practices we've got going on, coupled with trying to deal with some of the growth issues, jails, juveniles, animal centers, a few of our parks, for an example, that we have owned. We'll put some walking trails and things like that. We've committed to it. Probably not a lot of new structures in the Parks and Rec department, but again, maybe I was thinking the other day looking at, say, Hillsborough School, the old Hillsborough Middle School. That's a retro 1940s, 50 building. But spend some money on it, get some of the facilities changed, because it's used quite a bit by our community. Fairview, we've just finished doing a complete facelift, inside, outside.
It is so nice.
It is very nice. And the people are using that.
Yeah.
And some of the other buildings that we've had around for 20, 25, and 30 years, the rec department at off from Hillsborough Road, that's a 20-plus year old structure. Our ag center, it needs a little lipstick on it. We've just put in new sound and lighting. We've renovated all the bathrooms, the wear and tear on the thing. So it takes a lot of money. And so 19 and 20 is going to be kind of a stacking up of duplication. Look in the mirror, you see it again, but knocking off a few of those new items.
And what about controlling the growth? That's what I hear a lot about.
How many times have you heard, we need to shut the gate, Mayor?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work that way.
But there's a way
There are some ways we can.
you can work around it.
So before we went on air, you and I were talking about, how about permits? That's a great way. The building permits, that's a good barometer of how your community is growing that you can see on the front end.
Right.
Schools are on the back end.
That's a result of the front end.
As a result of the front end. So I don't have the numbers totally for 2019. The show just didn't allow me to close out the year on 19. But going into the month of December, if we had 13 residential building permits in the month of December.
And this is in the unincorporated area of the county.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Only in the unincorporated. If we had 13 building permits, then it would be the single largest year for building permits in the unincorporated part of our county since 1999.
That's 20 years ago.
So some people have been saying what you and I have seen and we watch, that the cities are growing. No question about that. Whether it's Nolensville or Franklin or Brentwood, Spring Hill, Thompson Station,
Yeah, even the
Fairview.
small towns are getting bigger.
Yeah. But the unincorporated area is also growing.
It is.
So in 2019, our planning department upstairs, led by Joe Horn and Mike Madsen and Christy, have made the rounds. We hired a consultant. So what do we need to do with comprehensive land plan and zoning? And so in 2020, here in the next few months, we'll begin rolling out those recommendations. And one of those recommendations will be looking at reducing the size of a lot from 1 acre to 5 acres, or increasing it, whatever you want to call it. That'll have both pros and cons, but you just won't be able to put so many homes in an area. You'll have to have 5 acres to even have something. Whereas in the past, when you and I moved here, you could do 1 acre lots. They had some for 5 acres, some for larger lot subdivisions and all that. But one of the ways you could effectively look at growth is reducing the number of people that can move into your community, which kind of slows down the children coming in, the schools, and helps the road construction from our perspective, and our perspective is the unincorporated area.
Right. And these recommendations, where did they come from? They came from meetings within the community, is that correct?
Yes, they did. We've had a
So
series.
it's, community has had input into this?
Yes, they have. You've probably seen some of the little posters on the side of the road. They call it 2040 Envision.
Right.
And that's what we're doing, trying to look out there 20 years for growth. Now, we change it about every 10. We never make it to 40. We never make it to 20. But, you know, that's what we label it. Somebody, we probably paid somebody a lot of money to come up with that 2040 Envision. But in all seriousness, we've got to figure out a way that we want to preserve as much as our unincorporated land we can. I've always said that. I believe in that. Not every community needs to be a city. Leapers Fork, Hillsborough. It was Hillsborough and Leapers Fork, and you know there were some conversations going back and forth, but it was really Leapers Fork, Hillsborough in the early days, and so those folks don't want to be in the sewer business. They want to be in the septic business. They don't want the big box
You're
chains.
going to put Robbie out of business.
That's right. And you and I were at the Christmas parade, the Leapers Fork Christmas, which is a whole show in itself.
Yeah.
Just talking about the unusual things that you see in a parade. But they're proud of their community.
Yeah, but they want to keep it small.
And they want to keep it in the confines of what they want. College Grove, same way. Triune, same way. Flat Creek's the same way. They don't want to grow in the cities, let cities come and get them. So, interesting year in 2020 that's coming down. We've got a minute. I know you've got to wrap up. We could cover a lot, but have a good year. Great to work with you as always.
Yeah, and I hope we...
It's election year. It's
That's
the
right.
Olympics and the presidential election. There won't be enough screen time on television.
Good Lord, just turn to a station and watch
That's
it.
right, channel 3 or whatever it is on the cables now, 96 or I don't know what it is. But in the year of the Olympics, in the presidential election, and it is full force.
Yes, turn all that stuff off and enjoy us.
We don't have any issues.
No. And Happy New Year.